Welcome back to Module 8 and Part 2 of Sampling in Quantitative Research. In today's video, we're going to review some information about the differences between random and non-random sampling that we learned from our last module, and then move on to talking about specific methods of non-random sampling. Part 1 and Part 2 of Sampling in Quantitative Research in past semesters was combined into a single module, but I decided to break them apart into two modules so you can make a cognitive distinction between the two often similar sounding techniques. So let's get into the content of Module 8. Recall what I said the last time about the differences between random and non-random sampling. Random sampling means that each element in the population pool has an equal chance of being selected into the sample. Non-random sampling is exactly the opposite. It means that each object or element is selected in a purposive way, such that each person in the population does not have an equal chance of being selected into the sample. So let's look at the idea of random versus non-random sampling just a little further. Say you were in the produce aisle of the grocery store because you wanted to create a fruit salad for breakfast tomorrow. If you were randomly sampling from the population of fruit at the store, you would close your eyes and just pick fruit here and there in no particular order from the display case. However, say you didn't want any citrus because it's just too sour in a fruit salad, or you only wanted stone fruits like peaches or plums in your fruit salad and you picked them purposively. Then that's sampling from a population of fruits in the produce section in a non-random fashion. Next, we're going to turn our attention to non-random sampling procedures. In non-random sampling, the selection of participants from the population is done more purposively, so each person in a sampling frame doesn't have the same chance or opportunity of being selected into the sample. By far, the most commonly used non-random sampling procedure is called convenience sampling. It's also called accidental or snowball sampling. Convenience sampling is a process of selecting objects or elements by chance or that are readily available. Examples of convenient sampling might be handing out questionnaires to the first 100 people you see on campus, or putting a recruitment message on social media platforms and asking all who are interested to participate in the study. As you can see from these examples, it's the easiest process of sampling, but it comes with some costs. Because not everyone has an equal chance or opportunity of being selected into the sample, your data might be biased. For instance, if you visited campus in the evening and found the first 100 students to participate in your study, you might be missing out on students with certain shared characteristics or oversampling from students with other shared characteristics who would be more likely to be there during the evenings, like graduate students and students who carry full-time jobs. Quota sampling is remarkably similar to stratified random sampling, but instead of sampling from subgroups at random, quota sampling selects participants from each subgroup non-randomly. Going back to the ethnicity strata example from stratified random sampling, a researcher might put up a recruitment flyer on a campus bulletin board and then ask all interested people to participate. If the goal again was to get 1,000 participants, the researcher would close participation to any further interested participants of white or Caucasian origin after the researcher recruited 453 white Caucasian students in the study. Another known population of subgroups that we might want a representative sample on is sex. We know that the human sex ratio of the world is about 101 males to every 100 females. So if we were using quota sampling for a study of, say, 500 people, we would want to collect the first 245 interested female participants and the first 255 interested male participants, and then we would close the study after reaching 500 total participants. This is an example of quota sampling. Purposive sampling is a non-random sampling method that focuses on very specific characteristics of the objects or elements chosen. It's called purposive or known group sampling because you're asking for participants who meet a certain criteria or possess certain characteristics. Some examples of known groups that communication researchers might exercise purposive sampling with is the population of children of divorced parents, first-generation college students, and clinical populations such as alcoholics or people suffering with clinical depression. Because you're selecting the first X number of people who meet the desired characteristics, you would be engaging in purposive non-random sampling. The last non-random sampling method we're going to discuss is snowball sampling. Snowball sampling is a technique used to recruit participants where existing participants recommend known acquaintances or contacts to participate in the study. These referrals are then asked to nominate others in the study until a sufficient number of participants is reached. Snowball sampling is used most frequently when conducting studies on difficult-to-reach populations of interest. Such examples where a researcher might use informants to find others with a rare or difficult-to-locate characteristic or condition might be undocumented immigrants, sex workers, and graffiti artists. There are several advantages and disadvantages of using non-random sampling procedures, some of which I'll mention here. The biggest advantages of non-random sampling are the lower cost and lack of time needed to be spent on sampling in comparison to random sampling procedures. Likewise, in the case of purposive and snowball sampling, you can get access to samples that would otherwise be unavailable to you as a researcher. But there are some cons that you need to keep in mind if you decide to use non-probability sampling. The most pressing is sampling bias. When you ask for participants to join a study, you may be oversampling people who possess certain characteristics or traits that might not be representative of the entire population. When I do a convenience sampling for any video game study that I conduct, I never use the term video game study because it'll often oversample gamers and exclude others from the study. The other thing is that because your sample is not a good reflection of the population, your results will not be generalizable. And because our goal is to take what we learn from our sample and apply it back to a larger population, this is a major limitation of non-random sampling. That's all I have for Module 8, but please also remember to read the textbook pages listed in the syllabus. In today's short video, we covered some important information. I reviewed the concepts of random versus non-random sampling, so you can be confident that you understand the differences in the families of sampling techniques. Then, I went over several kinds of non-random sampling methods, including convenience sampling, quota sampling, purposive sampling, and snowball sampling. What I want you to do is to be able to identify all of these as non-random sampling methods and begin to see how objects of the population don't have an equal opportunity of being chosen in the sample using these methods. As usual, please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions that come up or if you have any feedback about these videos. Apart from that, please don't forget about this week's module quiz. Have a great remainder of your week and a productive but still fun weekend. I'll see you next time.